Hello, everyone. My name is Guillaume. I'm VP of Technology here at Beta Virtual Assistants. So we're live today for our Tuesday tax tips. The subject of the day today is maybe what to talk about when timestamps matters. So let me just double check if everything is working properly. One second. Okay, all is good. All right. So timestamps. So why we care and when is that important? So like we've mentioned before, one important thing when we're doing the different crypto records and tracking and reconciling and everything, we need to make sure we have the cost basis, which means that whenever you sell or convert a position, there might be a value for that transaction, but then basically you might have a gain or a loss for the difference between that transaction when you sell the position and how much you paid for it when you bought it. But like we mentioned before, often what happens is if you buy and sell something a few weeks later on the same exchange for the same coin, and that's simpler, that's relatively simple. But what if you use some money to buy a position, like let you deposit money somewhere, and then possibly you buy a coin that you then transfer to another place, that you then maybe transfer from the your main account into your trading account, that you then sell or buy use to buy some other coins. And then let's say, so that gets more complicated. And let's say let's say you're trading also using different kind of trading method or automated method, then there might be even multiple trades into the same minute or sometimes even the same seconds. So all of this is basically normally what happens is when you import your data, then normally if you're able to import using an API or using a CSV file, there will be the trade, let's say the coin that was involved, the buy transaction. Maybe you're selling a coin for a certain amount and then buying another coin for another amount, and there will be a timestamp. But there's a couple issues there. What happens sometimes is, well, depending on the exchange, your trades might be labeled with different timestamps based on that exchange or based on that time zone or something similar like that. So it might not necessarily be something that's might be incorrect. Like it might be in your time zone, or maybe it's in the exchange time zone, or maybe it's the global time zone. So that's one thing that causes issue. Then another thing is, like I said, if there's a lot of transaction in a very short period of time. Then third thing is if you've been moving stuff around. And so all of this means that the software will try that we're using is pretty good and pretty clever. And but what it tries to do is it try to associate transactions. So we'll try to associate, let's say, a transaction for, let's say you're transferring, because when you're transferring from one account to another, basically you're withdrawal from an account and you're depositing in a different account, but it's the same coin. You didn't really sell it, you're just transferring it over. So in this case, we want to make sure that the amount you paid for to buy it, that it's going to transfer out to the other place where it's that same account, it's that same coin that you're holding, but it's the same amount that you paid for initially. So the software will try to match. Oh, here's a withdrawal of 10 units, and then here's a deposit of 10 units in some other place. But you can't deposit 10 units somewhere before you actually withdraw. So it's trying to match things that in a space, and you can make adjustment to that, but it's basically trying to make adjustment for let's say a time period and maybe even amount variation. Because what if there's a fee? You transfer 10 units, but sometimes they may charge you a 1% fee or whatever withdrawal fee. So actually, maybe you didn't get 10 at the other end. You probably know that when you try to send coins or try to send crypto to some people or to some of your accounts, it might end up with 9.9 units. So it will try to figure out, okay, here's all the things that I think are matching together, and will give you like a percentage or some kind of rating or how confident it is about this. And then there's a bunch of reports that are available that gives you the missing transaction, and then you can go through this and find out what if it has a proper match, but you still need to review sometimes if it made the correct guess. And then what if it doesn't have a match at all? And that's sometimes because you forgot to import some data or things like that. But then when you start looking at this, what you will notice often is that the reason it couldn't match thing is because the timestamps are wrong. And like I said, what sometimes we happen to be able to fix is because if you're using an API, you had certain kind of time zone, and then if you are imported by CSV from another place, because they don't have an API connection, maybe it's like 6 hours off for some reason because of your time zone, and it lost like the time zone. So if your withdrawals are happening after your deposit, then it cannot match. Like this is a transfer, withdrawal then deposit, but then it may not know that those two should be matching. Then again, what if there's a deposit into your main account, and then you withdraw from your main account to deposit it into your trading account? So basically, there might be 4 transactions that are involved. You're withdrawing from one exchange to deposit into another exchange in your main account. Then you withdraw again to deposit in your trading account so you can start trading. So there might be 4 transactions really all related to that same coin. Then again, if the timestamps also, sometimes it's not that it's in the wrong order, it's just that it's identical. And sometimes it's not sure, and especially in this case where there's like 4 transactions, which is which or which occurred first. And so sometimes it takes a guess, or sometimes it's not able to take a guess. And especially if there's also fee and the amount have slight variation. So one part of the process, some of that we automate a little bit, but some it's kind of manual a bit, is to look for those errors and fix the timestamp. So when you put the timestamps in the right order, so sometimes all is necessary is add 1 second or 1 minute in between. Then when they're in the right order, it's much more likely that you will be able to match them properly. So that's something that's part of the process, and that's a way to reduce a lot like the errors in your account, because you're then able to put everything in the right order. And that's because, like we know before, if you have a deposit with no value, or because a deposit and there's no withdrawal coming from some other place that can transfer over the value, then your value will be 0. So if you sell that, you will be making a capital gain on the full amount. And that's why we've been able sometimes to reduce estimated gains, crypto gains from some people, like reduce them by $5, $10, $20, $30,000, because it's just not just they had maybe some gains, but they had a lot more than they should have, like initially, after just importing the data and without fixing anything, just because a lot of the cost basis was lost, and the capital gains were way higher than they should have been. So that's why. So just to recap again, so timestamps really make sure that the sequence of event is correct, and there could be different reasons why this is incorrect, but of course we're dealing here with, sometimes people have 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 accounts, and so like I said, it's just depending on if you're using an import, a CSV file, or you're doing sometimes you can just export from the website directly. Sometimes some have phone apps or wallets where they need to export or email their transaction history. And so many reasons might explain that. But then, and then what happens is also what we've seen is sometimes even when there's a multiple things in the same timestamp, sometimes we've even seen cases where sometimes they might be missing transactions. Sometimes that they're totally were skipped because it was happening too quickly with bot automation. So that's why looking at when the error occurs, sometimes we can tell and see so many transactions happening in that time period, and that's just an indication for us to look for the balances around that time. And then we might figure out that something was just missing from the history. And so that's pretty much it, I guess. But yeah, it means that you need to make sure, and the fees also, I mean, it's a different thing a bit, but yeah, the fees are, again, the same thing. Sometimes the fees are put on deposit, sometimes on the withdrawal, but that's just know what happens. Sometimes is also the fee might be a separate transaction. So sometimes it's in the transaction itself. But like I said, because the amount might vary slightly, you may just not be able to figure out what's matching. So normally fixing the timestamp will solve some of that. And sometimes we need to fix the fee as well. And that just make sure that all is going through properly. So if you need any help with that, of course, or you have questions, that we're always here we're always available to help you with your crypto records and reconciling, or with your crypto taxes, obviously. And so we'll have a link probably to one of the replay of one of our recent workshop. So feel free to look at that if you're interested, or if you know anyone who might benefit from that. Like I said, often people they think, oh, I can do it, but then they realize it's much more complicated. And even us, I've had some good customer recently that so we're always learning more and more, but we've seen a lot of different exchange now, different problems, different things. So we're getting pretty good at finding all the problems that might occur. So we're here to help you. And if you like I said, we're here on Tuesday and Thursday normally for tax tips. And Saturday, it's more about like different possible strategy for investment, etc. So just come back to our Facebook Live and feel free to type in any question and comments, and then we'll be able to respond to you. And so have a good day, and we'll see you soon. Bye.